It's a time for more packages from China. Let's go.
They are giving us the, let's say, not even a manual, they just need to scan the QR code. But I am really curious what are we getting with this device. So they were selling all kinds of mini PC solutions now. I'm guessing I need to remove these two so I can get it out of there. They are using a lot of bubble wrap. Oh yeah, that is one thing. Wrap the bubble wrap. Let unwrap the bubble wrap. Let's see, let's be very careful, because I don't want to damage the case itself. Oh man, bubble wrap nightmare. And let's see, and let's check out how the case looks. I was really curious if this is like one of those 3D printed things. Oh yeah, this is one of those pretty 3D printed things. And the case in general looks, on the top it looks kind of cool, but at the front it looks kind of ugly. You can see how, oh man, how ugly it is. Having a switch over there, another sticker. At the back we're finding all kinds of connections, HDMI, old school output, 4 USB ports, 3 though, RJ45, and headphone and speaker output, and the input for the power supply. And that's it. There is nothing much actually to see. So let's plug it in and let's see what it is. But how about the controller? There are different configurations with all kinds of different ones, but these are just great. They're like knockoff Xbox 360 controllers. And the quality is not 100% similar to the original one, but they are getting really close. So that is why I choose this. And if you don't care about the wireless version, I would recommend just getting this Xbox 360 controller. However, you can just use these things for all kinds of different, let's say, emulation machines. So let's plug it in the back over here. We're going to be powering it on. Turns on over there. Okay, that is great. And let's see what is going to be happening. Will it automatically boot into some Bodacera or something else? I can hear the drive spinning up, and this thing is a Bodacera machine. Some of them are claiming to have Windows 11, but I was really curious about this. And what kind of chips are we going to be using? Are they still using the really old crap, or are we getting some decent stuff that we can actually have some overall good emulation performance? I was getting these weird, like say, intros that is going like automatically cuts off, and Bodacera is actually booting up now. And there we go. And I don't know what kind of version they're using, so that's one of the other things I'm really curious about. Are they using some random image from the internet or created something else? That is always the question with these guys. You can see all of the kind of stuff that we can play with this. That's what I love about these PCs and Bodacera. We can play so much different stuff. It's absolutely ridiculous when it comes to that. Oh, that thing. I love to do a teardown on this machine and just to check out what is inside of it, because it's a very long time that I heard a freaking drive make so much freaking noise. Okay, so the front end they're using, or at least like the layout, looks absolutely great. The LCD games. But all games, Amstrad, GX4000, Apple MAME. There is so much different stuff. It's unfortunate that and some other stuff is not having nice decals. Maybe we can change it out, update it. We have even some Windows games. They're also like putting only one game on there. I find it a very clicky D-pad. But I'm curious about the N64, GameCube, stuff like that. How will that actually work? We have Wii U and other kinds of cool stuff, 3DO and many other different systems. It's absolutely crazy. But let's get into the main menu and see what are we working with. So the image they are using is the Bodacera version 38 at this point. So system settings, let's go in there. Information. So let's see what kind of hard drive, 500 gigabytes, and I know there are 2 terabytes or 1 terabyte out there. The model number is the ETX N100 chip, so that is quite promising because the Intel N100 is a very good overall new generation chip, and in the end so much better than the crap that we've seen before. 8 gigabytes of total RAM, temperature is 32 Celsius, let's say idle. And the reason I think it's absolutely cool, because with the onboard Intel graphics, we're going to be having some interesting things we can do with this. But the N100 is not like an ultimate powerhouse like an AMD Ryzen. It's actually like way better than most, like say, really old crap they're using in these mini PCs now. But having some N100, we do have the option for some cool emulation, where I don't want to focus too much on the 8-bit, 60-bit era, because that will run perfectly without any problems whatsoever. 3DO from Panasonic is a system that I love to try out. Some Sega Saturn, Dreamcast, Naomi and stuff like that, and also do a little bit of an upscaling when it comes to PlayStation. So there's all kinds of cool platforms, but we will find some limitation. Where we're going to be finding them, that's going to be just testing out. MAME, we don't have any limitations here, so there are all kinds of cool games that we can play, but also the Killer Instincts and that kind of games will have overall good performance. The games that we can run on those cheaper game boxes. However, the menu feels kind of incomplete. You can see the Atari 8-bit over here that has no screen picture, anything else, but does have like an overall, I think, nice view, or at least like a black background. So when it comes to, let's say, some of the pages, they feel incomplete, and there's a little bit of a downside. So far, the most of the platforms do have the pictures and everything else, but if you're going to be looking at the TurboGrafx or PC Engine, you can see there's no picture whatsoever. So the image itself is quite incomplete, and unfortunate, it's not the best image I've ever seen when it comes to that. But we're starting off with some Game Boy Classic and Battletoads. They also implemented a filter, so this is going to be looking a little bit better. Combined with the bezel, everything looks kind of cool. So what I mentioned before is like the old school stuff. You can actually run this on very simple game sticks. So many different machines that can play this. So you don't really need an N100 chip for this kind of emulation. It's kind of cool, I can tell you that. But performance wise, nothing wrong going on. So you can also shut down the bezel if you want to. If you're going to be into the advanced options, let me show you what I mean. So what you're going to be doing is resetting, going to the advanced game options, and in here we can choose the emulator if you want to, and we can mess around with it if you have problems booting up, because that happened with me. Let's go with Super NES and some Aero Fighters. Just wanted to move on to the Super NES because this is one of those great systems, and we don't have any problems with overall emulation here. So they also implemented the bezels for the right aspect ratio. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan when it comes to that, because for me, I think just some black bars around it is just fine when it comes to the emulation and the aspect ratio. So one of the things that is really appealing about the N100 chipset is that we can actually play some N64 without any problem whatsoever. Yeah, so the N64 is such a problematic emulator for low-end chips, and we have tried this on so many different boxes now. However, this is not going to be a problem when it comes to Cruising the USA, the ultimate test for actually playing some games. But I also wanted to check out some other games and also do a little bit of an upscaling, because this is one of those systems where we can actually do upscaling, and I think makes N64 look so much better, particularly if you're going to be using this mini PC on a bigger screen. I think it's one of the very convenient things of emulation, that we have like overall better performance, or at least better overall graphical performance than the original system, or you need to have like those very expensive modifications been done where you have internal resolution upscaling, because it is possible on original hardware, but it's just freaking expensive. However, let's get into some different game, because this runs just fine. So we're getting into the N64 advanced game options. So when you're going to be going into the video options in here, for example, like the advanced option, we can sometimes do a little bit of an upscaling. So if you do have a problem with this, so we don't have this option, what you need actually to do is go all the way back to emulators and set it up here. We're having all kinds of different emulators, like the Movement 64 Plus next, and all kinds of different. Parallel is one of them I do sometimes use when it comes for upscaling, and you need to check out what is possible. For example, random resolution over here, we can go all the way up. Let's go 6 times. We can do some crazy stuff all the way to 80 times. I'm not going to be doing that, but let's say we're going to be trying to boost it up from 9020 by 4040 and see how that actually runs. Okay, so we're going to be saving that, and let's boot it up. But let's get into some gaming, and you can see some stuttering going on, because now we're going to be pushing this N100, actually like this low power chip, to the maximum level. So let's see what happens. We're going to be having a 50 frames per second with some minor dip of 42. So in other words, you can play F-Zero X on native resolution, But when it comes to upscaling, I think we need to step it down one little step. Simply because this is just too much. If you don't mind the hiccups, then it's not going to be a problem whatsoever. So out of the box, we can play it on a resolution, no problem what kind of game. And of course you can also switch between the different emulators if you want to. But let's move into some GameCube, and we're going to be upscaling to the 720p. I don't want to do 1080p because that is going to be way too much. I think it's absolutely great to see that we can have like basic chips that are having upscale options when it is possible. However, you can see some dips of 45. But let's get into the gaming and let's say how it's going to be running in general, because yeah, this is going to be a combination of what kind of game you're going to be using and what kind of resolution, because an F-Zero GX, for example, is going to be way more difficult to emulate. Dipping to 42, so the resolution is going to be absolutely like pushing this device to the limit. So let's start off with some arcade stuff. Atomic Wave, but this time 720p emulation performance. And yeah, I must say that where we had a lot of problems with this particular system on basic boxes, we can even do a little bit of upscaling, and it's absolutely a bonus. But let's get into the part where we're going to be having a lot of stuff going on, and you can see it runs without a lot of problems through here, no problem, 60 frames per second. So moving on to some MAME, and yeah, with MAME we can play so many games. I think we don't have any limitations, so what I understand of having Tekken MAME, Mortal Kombat, if you want to play Killer Instinct, you can actually play that without any problems on here. I think that's one of the benefits of having this freaking computer, and with the N100 we don't have any issues whatsoever. I have no idea how to do moves anymore. No, I have no idea how the moves were. Oh, I even messing up the freaking uppercut. Oh, come on. Move on into the Sega Saturn with the 4K resolution or rendering resolution. And the reason why I wanted to check this, I can already see that it struggles here and there, because I've been doing all kinds of tests with both Sierra on older like PCs, like the AMD Ryzen, a very cheap one I picked up for, I think it's around like $90 freaking dollars. And I had like an amazing overall 4K rendering resolution support. And I think that has to do because AMD Ryzen and their internal GPU is absolutely amazing. And when the N100 is significantly improved from the older models, it's still not enough for having 4K rendering resolution with Sega Saturn. Now using Yaba Sensuro, but maybe can tweak some little bit of, let's say, different emulators. But out of the box with Yaba Sensuro, no, this is not the way how you want to experience the Sega Saturn games. I have never had this great of an experience with Sonic Racing, you know? Normally I just suck at this game. I'm even the second place, see me go. Woohoo! Going to be beating Knuckles. Come on, come on, there we go. Come on! I find it very interesting to see how responsive this freaking joystick is of this horrible fake Xbox controller, because it's really horrible compared with the original system or original controller. Okay, yeah, I think I officially messed it up now. Yep, third place, yep, I messed it up. There we go. The next system in line is the Sega Dreamcast. I'm just going to be putting it at 1080p resolution. You did notice that the 4K rendering resolution of the Sega Saturn was not a good thing. The unfortunate, I don't have a frame per second counter, it doesn't being enabled. But let's boot it up, if I can even drive with this freaking thing. Oh, there we go. No, there we go. I can hear that it struggles on 1080p. And of course it will be depending what kind of game you're going to be playing. But when it comes to playing this game, getting into the game, it's not going to be a big problem with some minor hiccups. Simulation performance of the Sega Dreamcast part is quite nice, but I think we need to switch between 720p or 480p to get an overall great experience. We can switch between emulators if you want to. Now using the Flycast emulator. So let's see what we can do when it comes to the Naomi system. And we have been putting it on 720p rendering resolution, where we do have an overall way better performance with this. And this is a great example that we do need a little bit of tweaking per game, but also when it comes to per system, because not everything will run out of the box. And this has simply to do with the N100 chip is having some limitation in combination with the GPU that is on board. If we're going to be having a little bit more power of the GPU, but also particularly when it comes to the GPU, then we're going to be having so much better performance with upscaling. But this is what we're getting when it comes to upscaling and some old school games. But if you want to do some, let's say, upscaling with the PlayStation part, the overall performance is not bad at all when it comes to that. However, I did notice that it did struggle depending on what kind of game. So yeah, it is when it comes to, let's say, emulation, I did have a little bit better luck when it comes to some of the previous, let's say, just cheap mini PCs, where it's just amazing performance with not a lot of money. So we can able to play this. Take note, it's going to be taking up a lot of power from this N100, but this particular game seems to be running just fine. So moving on to the 1080p and PlayStation 2. And of course, here same story, that we do have a little bit of a difference between the games, so we need to do a little bit of tweaking. We don't have enough power to say like, hey, we're going to be rendering everything on 1080p or 4K or 2K resolution. So it's going to be different per game, but with this particular one, it seems to be working just fine. I just wanted to start off with a two-dimensional one. A great example, let's try a two-dimensional fighting game, having it set to 2K resolution, so doing a little bit of an upscaling here. And we do have an overall great performance. So let's see through the game if you do have the same performance like with all the other games. But now we're going having less overall. Okay. I have no idea what I'm doing at this point. Oh, there we go. We're getting into the game. The super move is one of those great tests that you can actually do to see if you do have a great frames per second, but everything runs perfectly without any problem whatsoever. So you can just see this is a great example where we're having 2K resolution that is even possible on this basic N100 chip.